Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my review of WrestleMania 37. Before we get too deep into this, I want to let you know about a change coming to the channel soon. I've decided to cut down on the wrestling content. I'm aware currently there are only 4 of the wrestling videos on the channel, but compared to all the other content I've been bringing, the wrestling stuff just hasn't been doing very well. In response to this, I'll be slowing down on the wrestling content for a bit. I'm sure those of you who follow my Instagram will have seen this already, but I'll be cutting down to around 8 wrestling videos a year. Those being WWE's Big 4, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, and AEW's Annual 4, or any other pay-per-views they decide to announce. Don't worry though, because I know you all value my wrestling opinions so much, because all those pay-per-views in between, such as NXT TakeOver and the other 800 WWE pay-per-views, because I will be rating those over on my Instagram exclusively. I created a whole new story where you can see my rating for each match, and then the overall rating for the show. Of course, if you don't already know my Instagram, at Jerry's Pro Wrestling, I give my thoughts on title changes, big events, and anything I really feel that I need to comment on in the wrestling world. So go ahead and give that a follow so you don't miss any wrestling content. But with that, let's get to the video. WrestleMania Night 1 was definitely the better of the 2 nights. I don't think anyone can argue with that. But first, let's talk about how good it felt to have the fans back. It was so great finally seeing real live people in the audience. The only downside is I'm reading that some of the reactions were still piped in regardless of the live audience, but either way, it felt good to see it and it felt good to hear it. Of course, WrestleMania Night 1 was delayed by around 45 minutes due to rain, and we got some very funny improv by Michael Cole and the wrestlers backstage. But at last, the show began, and boy did it start off with a bang. Of course, if you follow my Instagram or recently watched my top 10 male wrestlers video, you will know that I was pulling for Bobby Lashley to retain against Drew McIntyre. This match had me on the edge of my seat. My heart was racing for Big Bobby. There was some fantastic action here with so much back and forth. It took 3 attempts before Lashley was finally able to get the Hurt Lock locked in and put Drew McIntyre to sleep. One thing I noticed is that for a lot of wins over WrestleMania, the loser did not hit their finisher. My only regret for this match is that McIntyre did not hit the Claymore, so Lashley could have kicked out. I think that really could have established Bobby as a strong and credible force. This match was great, and it gets itself a 9.3. Next up, we had the Tag Team Turmoil match to find out who faces Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax on Night 2 for the women's tag titles. The match began with Carmella and Billie Kay versus Naomi and Lana. Naomi and Lana would pick up the win in this opening matchup, and their next opponents would be the Riot Squad, who actually had a really great showing, and I love their Joker and Harley-inspired outfits. This time, it was the Riot Squad who stood tall and moved on to face Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Morgan got the win for her team before Tamina and Natalya made their way out to win the match. The action was decent, likely the worst match of the night, and one in terms of watchability. I don't think there's anything special here, which is going to pull down the rating for this match to around a 5. Up next, we had Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. This was another great match with so much amazing action. Cesaro was really put over here and made to look like a star. Spoilers for later in the night, but hopefully with Cesaro getting the win, and them specifically mentioning the Universal Championship in the promo packages, Cesaro might be the one to knock off Roman Reigns? Imagine how great that would be. Cesaro hit a 23-round big swing on Rollins before hitting the neutralizer for the win. Cesaro was definitely the right pick for this match, and he did fantastic. This match is definitely worth a watch and gets a 9.5. Next up, we had the Raw Tag Team Championship match of The New Day versus AJ Styles and the debuting Omos. This match went exactly as expected. Styles was dominated for most of the match, so Omos couldn't get in and working that hot tag more and more throughout the match. Finally, Styles got to Omos and it turned into a squash match. While this was entertaining, I wouldn't say it was phenomenal. See what I did there? The match got a 6.8, and Styles is now a Grand Slam champion. The thing I find a little stupid about matches like this is Omos right now is seen as an unstoppable force, but later down the line, when it's time for them to lose the titles, all of a sudden he's going to have a weakness. Up next was the cage match, the advertised Brains versus Braun, Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. The match was okay. It had some good spots here and there, such as Braun ripping the cage open, stop Shane, but ultimately, I'm not a fan of it. At its core, this is just a bullying storyline, which is kind of, for lack of a better word, stupid. Braun defeated Shane, of course, and got himself another Mania win. The match was watchable, but again, it wasn't anything special, so I'll give it a 7.6. And then we had the match that surprised me, and I think everyone else the most. In a good way. We'll get to the bad stuff on night 2. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Miz and Morrison. This was a really decent match. I'm glad they didn't use the cut and paste format of a hot tag like they did with Omos, and instead Bad Bunny had a really good showing. He had some sick moves like the Canadian Destroyer, and it was definitely one of the better celebrity matches in WWE. I don't think anyone can match up to Pat McAfee, but this was really good. Priest got over well with the Bunny, and hopefully Priest will go on to do his own thing rather than being Bad Bunny's friend. The faces won, and this match gets a 9. Seriously, go and watch it. It's a fun match. And then the main event of night 1, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. This was a fantastic match. The emotion in this match was great. Bianca had used everything she had to put Sasha away. In the end, she used her braid to whip Sasha, and the sound itself hurt you. I think these two will have a great series of matches going down the line and in the future. This was just absolutely fantastic. Of course, Bianca won to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion and got her WrestleMania moment. This match gets a 9.8. Before we get to night 2, I just wanted to remind you to Superman punch that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified when new videos just like this come out. Alright, now on to night 2. Night 2 of WrestleMania kicked off with something that just makes me very angry. It's no surprise I like The Fiend, and it's no surprise I don't agree with a single bit of WWE's booking for him. So if you can't tell, I hated this match. The Fiend got a revamped look, which was nice, before making his way out to face Randy Orton. The Fiend got some heavy cheers, which felt really good. The match wasn't bad, it was your regular Fiend match. A couple no-sells, some quick moves, and then it all went downhill from there. This should have been a surefire win for The Fiend, but instead WWE had to go and screw it up. The Fiend hit Sister Abigail, and Alexa appeared with the black crap running down her face. The Fiend got distracted and reached out to her before eating an RKO and getting pinned. It wasn't that hard. It was not that hard. Why do you have to ruin everything I love? This match gets a 3. I guess on some scale it's watchable, but it's just horrible. Don't even bother. Following that atrocity was Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Tamina and Natalya for the women's tag titles. The match wasn't terrible, there was nothing too memorable, but Tamina had some good spots, and overall it was just your basic women's tag match. The champs did retain, of course, but the teams for them to face keep diminishing by the day, so I'll be interested to see who eventually beats them. This match wasn't too special, so it gets a 7.6. Next up, we had one of the best matches of Night 2 and WrestleMania as a whole, Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. One thing I definitely think is worth noting is the amount of booing that came when Logan Paul walked down the ring. To anyone who didn't watch WrestleMania live, yes, the crowd booed the hell out of him, regardless of any cheers WWE piped in themselves. The match itself was fantastic. We know this. We know how great Owens and Zayn can work against one another. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Owens go off the top of the pirate ship like he's been teasing for over a year now, but this match was great nonetheless. After the match, Logan Paul shoved Sami Zayn before trying to befriend Kevin Owens and taking a stunner. This match gets a 9.6. Following that was Riddle versus Sheamus for the United States Championship. This was another really great match. Most of the offense was from Sheamus, who hit a whole hell of a ton of moves on Riddle. The match ended when Sheamus hit a bro kick into a backflipping Riddle, which was just awesome. Sheamus picked up the win, earning himself the title in a fantastic match. As we now know, Keith Lee was supposed to win the US title back at Elimination Chamber, so hopefully he will be the one to remove it from Sheamus. The match was great and earns itself a 9.3. Next up, we had something interesting, to say the least. Big E versus Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental Championship in a Nigerian drum fight. Now, if I told you two dudes were going to compete in a drum fight with drums at ringside, you would assume at least one drum would be used against someone. No. All kendo sticks and one table. Oh yeah, and Dabba-Kato debuted. Again, looking like a Soviet general. Apollo beat Big E for the title at Mania. I'm just confused. It's the first show with fans in over a year. You would think they would want the fans to cheer a little bit, or give them something to go crazy for, but instead, they had McIntyre lose, which I'm fine with that one. That makes plenty of sense. They had The New Day lose, again, it's fine. They had The Fiend lose, for some reason. They had Tamina and Natalya lose, which I guess is fine. They had Riddle lose, they had Big E lose, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, Roman won the triple threat, so where exactly on this card are the fans supposed to go nuts, other than Bianca? The match was really pretty crappy, and I have to give it a 4.8. Next up, we had the Raw Women's Championship match, Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. This match wasn't terrible, but it did feel as though it was missing something. I can't really name what that something was, but it was definitely missing something. The action was good and back and forth action. In the end, it was Rhea Ripley who hit the Riptide, pinned Asuka, and won herself the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Because the match was a little bit awkward, it's going to get itself a 7.9. And finally, we had the Universal Championship Triple Threat. Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan. Now this match was pretty crazy. Jey Uso had some involvement for a lot of the match with a lot of super kicks and chair shots, and it was just all over the place. The match had some great spots and some great action. Spears and knees and concertos. Wild. In the end, it was Edge who hit a concerto onto Daniel Bryan before Roman hit a concerto onto Edge, stacked both men on top of each other, and pinned both of them. I do not want to hear Edge was on top of Bryan first. He should have won it. I don't want to hear it. While I was pulling for Bryan in this match, I was happy that it wasn't Edge who won. The match was very interesting and earns itself a 9.4. Definitely go give it a watch. With that said, WrestleMania 37, the first event with fans in over a year, and the two-night spectacle earns itself a 7.7. WrestleMania was definitely an interesting one this year, and I'm interested to see where some of the storylines go. That's it for now. I'll plug it again, but for more wrestling content, go ahead and follow my Instagram, Jerry Pro Wrestling, or for pop culture, go ahead and follow Jerry the King 1223. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next one.